Have you ever wanted to take a really cool moment like this and turn it into a huge wall mural for your home or office? It's actually a lot easier than you might think. A couple of years back, I took this picture of Christian Hosoi and had it printed up for my office here. And it's about 8 feet wide and 4 feet tall. It's made out of a really high quality vinyl, and it was about $80 to have it shipped to my door. So today I'm going to show you how to make your own giant wall poster just like this one. Before we head over to the computer and get started, I wanted to take a couple of moments and share a little bit about this photo and why I love it so much. So like I said earlier, this is Christian Hosoi. This was at the Elgato Classic. This was several years back. It was an event put on by Elgeurra out at Palm Springs, California, where he invited a bunch of legendary skaters from the 70s and 80s, and they skated all day. My kids and I had a chance to go and attend and meet a whole bunch of the skaters and get up close to the action. And I took a whole bunch of photos, and I'd love to share those with you. So after we do the tutorial, let's come back and share a little bit. And the little teaser is this is kind of like a page out of a Where's Waldo book. There are a whole bunch of legendary skaters kind of scattered out through here. And it's fun if I point out to someone where Tony Hawk or Mike McGill is, they can take a minute and kind of look around. So anyway, it's a fun conversation piece as well as great memories from a fun time with my kids. So let's go ahead and get over to the computer and we'll get started and maybe come back to this a little bit later. All right, first thing we want to do is find the picture that we want to use for the banner. So in my case, I have a whole bunch of photos from that Elgato Classic event here in a photo album, and you can see I took 600 photos that day. I just was snapping all day long. It was a lot of fun. But if I go up here to filter, I have some favorites. You can see some kind of sneak peek of some of the cool shots. But this is the one that I decided that I was going to use for my banner. And you can see it's a little bit different aspect ratio, so we had to do some cropping. Yours may or may not be ready to go. You may need to do some editing to get the lighting just right or color balance. In my case, I was pretty happy with this. So in Apple, you can just export that original photo. And I just threw it on my desktop. Before we move on, I wanted to make a couple of notes about this photo that you might want to keep in mind. It's about a 12 megapixel photo. This camera that I was using was pretty old at the time. So if you have a more modern or more recent photo with more megapixels, that's going to be much better. It's going to print much more clearly on the banner. So you want to get a large megapixel photo. It could have been sharper, but as you saw, if you're a couple of feet away from the wall, you really don't notice. It looks great. If I'm sitting here at my desk and I look over, it looks perfectly fine. So keep that in mind. You want a lot of megapixels. So yeah, we've got that ready. So I've got this photo here on my desktop. And since this photo itself is not the highest resolution, I'm going to go ahead and open it up with Photoshop. And Photoshop has an AI-based tool that'll help you upscale some photos, and it'll help keep the resolution pretty clear and not be as pixelated. So since this is not the highest resolution photo to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's other upscaling services. There's some websites. Some of them are free. Some of them are trial or $30 a month or something. Or if you don't have Photoshop, you can go get a 7-day trial of it for free and then cancel before the end. But basically, we want to come into the image size, and right here, we want our resolution to be around 300 dots per inch. And right now it's saying at 300 dots per inch, it's only should be printed about 16 inches wide. We can't automatically fix this and add pixels that aren't there, but this does a pretty good job of using AI to smooth things out. So believe it or not, I'm going to change this to 96. So that's a huge upscale, but 96 is 8 feet wide. So again, when you're a few feet back away, this will look perfectly fine. If this was like a photograph that you were going to be looking at from a foot from your eyes, you definitely want the high resolution. This would not look good in that scenario. But anyway, yeah, we'll upscale it. So it just takes a second to do that, and then I want to then export that. And I'm going to export this as just a giant JPEG. It'll be fine in this. All right, now it's ready. Well, there we go. So we'll click export. I'm going to just let it go into my downloads folder. That's fine. I'm just going to put Hosoi for the banner. And then we'll let that do its thing for a minute. All right, that's all we needed Photoshop for. Just leave the original unmodified. So that was the original. I've got this new one here in my downloads right there. And then I want to go over, so there's a whole bunch of different places you could use online to get your banner printed. I've printed 3 or 4 of these. This one here, and I've done a couple for work through VistaPrint, and I've not had any issues. They've turned out great. They do all kinds of stuff like business cards and like yard sale signs and whatever, checks and all that crazy stuff. But in our case, we want vinyl banners. And then in vinyl banners, you have to kind of figure out, do you want it to be horizontal or vertical? I assume horizontal, that's how mine was. Then you have all kinds of options for sizes. So I went with 4 feet by 8 feet because I found that that was really large for my size room, but it also kept the price within reason. Once you start to get into some of these really bigger sizes, the price goes up. But pick that, and then if you were going to be hanging this outside or in your garage with like rope, you might want those metal grommets, as you can see over here where my mouse is. But I didn't want it. I wanted it nice and clean, and likewise with the reinforced edges. Since it's hanging on my wall, I just wanted it nice and clean. So those are my material type. You can have indoor, outdoor, or this PVC. Indoor is perfectly fine. Again, trying to save money. So we're at $86 for this poster now. The thing with this VistaPrint is they're always having sales and specials, so don't necessarily think you've got to pay full price. Like, for example, they've got a banner up here. If it's your first order, 25% off. So, I mean, that's going to save you another 20 bucks. So by the time you add shipping, this is probably like 70 bucks. And maybe shipping's free. Maybe they have a free shipping deal. All right, we're going to go ahead and click Upload Design. We're going to select the photo that we upscaled earlier in Photoshop. So I'm clicking that here. If you get this error that sometimes happens, not a big deal. Just click over here on Images and just try it again. So we can see it's uploading over here. So now we have the photo uploaded. The aspect ratio isn't quite right, so we're going to move it out a little bit here and zoom it in. You want a little bit over on each side to account for any bleed so that there's not any white space on the final print. And then you want to get it kind of centered at the right point. In my case, I was looking to have a little bit of this coping from the bowl just slightly in view, but I did not want to get his hand up too close to the top edge. So something about right there, and then again, let me get that bleed just right. And that should be good. So you do have the option if you want to add images or shapes or anything like that. If you wanted, if this was for a business or club or something, you could do that. But in my case, I just wanted a clean looking poster. Click on Next. It gives you kind of an example of what it's going to look like, and you can go ahead and confirm that you're happy with everything. Click that you've reviewed it. It's going to add it to your cart. It's going to ask you a bunch of questions. It's like, no, I don't need those things. No, I don't need your additional postcards and ink pens, and I don't need whatever Vista Wix is. Then you get to your cart. At this point, you could go ahead and grab a coupon code and throw that on there. And I guess you're on your own from here because everybody knows how to check out of an online store. So yeah, once you click submit, it'll be off to the races. Once you place the order, it'll take a couple of days for them to print it and then ship it, and a couple of days later it'll get to your house. It'll arrive rolled up in like a tube shape in a cardboard box. You'll obviously want to take it out of the box and unroll it and lay it face down. There's a few different ways to hang this, but I found that these command strips work really well. And basically they've got a Velcro or hook and loop system so that they'll attach, and that allows you to attach one side to the wall and one to the poster, and it gives you some leeway to adjust if you didn't get it quite perfectly level, or if you want to pull it down temporarily or whatever. So next step, we'll get it on the wall. can be a little bit tricky to get everything just perfectly aligned and centered, but I've got a couple of tips for you that'll make it really simple. To get the command strips ready, basically you're going to separate the pairs and stick them together just like this. You're going to want to peel apart the adhesive backing of just one side, and you're going to place that along the back. So you'll have the poster on the ground face down, and you can kind of kneel and scooch along, but you'll have one or two on each corner, and then maybe 2, 3, 4 in the middle so it doesn't sag. It really just depends on how many of these things you've got laying around. Yeah, so once you get those attached, you don't want to pull both sides of the adhesive, just the side that's going to stick to the vinyl. That way, with the back still on there, it'll be easy to kind of like shimmy it around as you're getting the first corner attached, and that will help make sure that you get it lined up. So there's a couple of hacks with some masking tape, and I'll show you that next. Okay, so now that we have the command strips attached to the back of the poster, before you lift it up on the ground, it's going to be a lot easier if you take a couple of minutes to visualize exactly where you want it, and to use some blue painter's tape or some masking tape to use as guide markers to make sure that you get it where you want it and that it's level. So before you get started with that, obviously you want to visualize and think about exactly where in the room you want it. In my case, I wanted this to be centered horizontally across the room. My room is about 10 feet wide. This poster is about 8 feet wide, so that gives me 2 feet, so basically 1 foot on each side. The room's actually a little bit longer than 10 feet wide, and in my case, I ended up with 16 inches on each side. So what you're going to want to do is take a piece of painter's tape and just mark it so that that corner is at your distance you need. So in my case, 16 inches. And then I eyeballed it to kind of figure out exactly how high I wanted it. And I didn't want it exactly centered on the wall. I thought up a little bit to make it above the bed here. But it turned out it was exactly 12 inches. It was a great spot for the top. So basically I needed to make sure that where the 12 inches here intersected with the 16 there, that I put a corner of the blue painter's tape right there. And then I went a few times down, probably 4 or 5 times, and I measured the 12 inches from the top, and I put the blue tape at the 12 inches line, and I did that several times across, and then that gave me a good guide point. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so after you have your guide markers from your tape up on the wall, you're ready to get this thing lifted up. So ideally you would have 2 people, one on the left side and then you over here on the right side. They can kind of hold it as you get the first corner secured. And you can see in my case, I actually had 2 of these command strips up here. But basically, while they were holding it, I just lined up this edge right here and I attached the command strip to the wall. They still, it's kind of sagging as this is going. I would take the next little section, get it attached with the command strip in the next section, and eventually they would pass off and I'd get that other corner. And so if you follow a path like that, it's pretty much guaranteed that you are going to end up with it perfectly level and centered exactly where you want it. People are going to be really surprised that you were able to get this thing centered so perfectly. And then waste not, want not, what you can do at the end is take these pieces of blue tape here, and you can kind of put them on the side and on the bottom. So I only put my command strips up on the top, and you can throw this a little bit on there, and that'll just keep it from moving around as you, if you have a bedroom fan or anything like that on. So yeah, that's pretty easy. If you've made it this far, thanks for sticking around. Big thumbs up, a big like button to you guys for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I'd love to hear if you are thinking about making one of these of your own, or if you already have, or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to chat with you in the comments. Earlier, we did say we were going to come back and look at these pictures a little bit in more detail. And I was going to share a little bit about this Elgato Classic. It really was an opportunity of a lifetime for my kids and I to come here and get up close to the action and get to interact with so many of these legendary skaters, some of my childhood heroes. It was really awesome. So let's move back over the computer and we'll check some of that stuff out. Okay, so we're back at my computer here, and let's open up the Photos app, and we can kind of scroll through some of these photos. So yeah, this was the Elgato Classic. We came out a couple days in advance and did some skating around Huntington Beach and some of the other skate parks. The night before the skate event, they had a kind of a party, and we had a chance to meet a whole bunch of these legendary skaters. These aren't all of them, but there's Jeff Ho from the Z Boys, the Zephyr team back in the day with Stacy Peralta. There's Paul Schmidt from Schmidt Sticks back in the day. He's still skating. He was skating the next day. We got to meet Eric Dressen. Actually, I got to meet him when I was like 15 years old and had his autograph back then at a skate demo he was doing. And I got his autograph again here, and that was kind of fun to chat with him a little bit. He's a really super kind guy. He was really fun to talk to. Here we are with Eddie Elgeurra himself. So we actually had my son won an Instagram event or contest and won some VIP tickets to this event through Eddie. So he greeted us and walked us around a little bit. That was fun. There's Steve Alba, legendary Salba. Really fun watching him skate the next day. He was also really friendly. Christian Hosoi. Also, all these guys were friendly. It's fun when you meet your childhood heroes and they're actually cool dudes and they're not, too busy for you, brush off the fans or whatever. They were all really friendly. Even after Christian, we met his dad, Pops Hosoi. He was really friendly. He did a lot of the artwork for Hosoi's skateboards back in the day. Super cool dude. We met a whole bunch of others, but I guess that's maybe all the photos I had there. All the skaters in the event signed these decks, and then each skater got to take one home. Unfortunately, we did not get one of those. However, we did get this poster that we took around, and so we got a ton of autographs from these legendary skaters. That was really fun. And then at the event itself went on all day long, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but I've got like 600 photos here. But I did favorite some. There's a bunch of cool old school skaters here. There's Steve Alba, the legendary Salba. We had Eddie Elgeurra. I think that was Chuck Holtz with him. They're like scoping a line to do this old Hobie old school deck. That's Jamie Godfrey. He was one of the original Bones Brigade members, I believe, in the really early 80s. There's Eddie doing a rock and roll or rock the fakie on that old Hobie. That was fun watching him do that. And he was giving high fives after he made it. There's Paul Schmidt, Salba again. There's Jim Gray. He was really friendly and fun. He and my daughter had fun chatting, and I think he gave her his phone and asked for her to take some pictures of him while he was skating so he could share with his friends and family. That was fun. Some of Hosoi. There's another one of these old school decks from, I think that was Chuck Holtz again. Jim Gray again. There's John Lucero. Everybody loves John Lucero. This guy, I honestly didn't know him. His name was like Sergio something. I think it was Sergi or Sergio. He was, I believe, from maybe Brazil. He's an excellent skater, man. He was really ripping it up. Brad Bowman, another Paul Schmidt. This one was Lester Kasai. Also super friendly. After the event, we saw him in the parking lot and chatted with him for a few minutes. Super humble, awesome guy. There's some more Eddie skating, more Salba, Brad Bowman, I believe, Jim Gray. I think we're getting into some repeats. At some point there's Tony Hawk. He came and skated for a while, so I got some good shots of Tony. This is the one that we did for that poster. A couple more of Tony. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the best spot for where he was setting up for his tricks. And then the next day, they had a vert ramp. Tony Hawk brought his vert ramp, and we had some other skaters like Tony Magnuson, and that's Kevin Staub there. And then the next day, we went back and we skated the park, and just as like I was when I was a kid, I was trying to emulate, like I want to be just like these guys when I grow up. And so, yeah, that was it. That was a lot of fun. So I could go on and on and on about this day. It was really amazing, but let's wrap it up here. Really appreciate you hanging out with me this far into the video. If you've made it this far, please consider a like and a subscribe. I think that would be really helpful to help grow the channel. And just thank you so much for hanging out. And if you did decide that you want to do one of those murals, I would love to hear about it down in the comments. So I guess that's it for now. Thanks for hanging out with me. All right, bye-bye.